After successfully killing John Connor, the human resistance still ends up winning the war. It seems that Skynet has been tracking the wrong John this entire time. In this new future, Skynet sends multiple Terminators back in time to deal with the real human threat, John Wick. He'd fought well, as much as he could, but what could a teenager do against a killer robot from the future after all? Burning it hadn't worked. Shooting it in the head, grenades, nothing. Pretty good attempts for a kid to muster at any rate. And here he was, knees shot out, ribs broken, laying on the wet floor of a disused warehouse. And I promised my mum I wouldn't get into any more trouble. He laughed, pain splitting through his sides as blood spat from his mouth. Man, it had almost been worth it. Free from his anxieties and syndromes, he'd finally found his calling, his normality, his gift. Too bad it had been so short-lived. Yeah, still worth it. Struggling to lift his hand, he placed a cigarette between his lips. He'd kept the packet in his pocket since he'd been on the run, promising himself to try it at least once if things went bad. Well, now was as good a time as any. The heavy footsteps he'd been running from the past 3 weeks echoed loudly in the empty space, approaching his side. Limp with pain, his hand struggled to strike the lighter. A strong hand took it from him and lit the cigarette in his mouth. "It is time, John Wick," the flat voice said. John turned to his side, looking at the thing, about as average-looking as any man could hope to be. The holes and cuts down its face were beginning to heal, drawing themselves together in bursts of blue shocks. It was pretty cool, really. "Just kill me," John said, inhaling the thick smoke of the cigarette, feeling his lungs burn with the smoke, and then hacking up a torrent of blood. The cigarette fell from his mouth, wet and useless. Not cool at all. "I will not kill you, John. First, I will search your mind, find what makes humans like you so hard to kill, so determined, so able. If we can understand that, then we can win." A long tube extended from between the fingers of the robot and shot into John's temples from either side. Electric burst through John's mind, stinging and raw, as if his brain was being burned from the inside. Images flashed through his head, numbers, details, people and places. It was searching through everything, ransacking his mind and clawing away whatever it thought was of interest. Blood seeped from John's nose in a constant stream as his body began to shake. And then there was something, a stream, a flow. The data and numbers that John had sensed had not been his own, but that of the machine. Somehow he felt himself being drawn to the flow, and he reached out with his mind, connecting with it. White, everywhere, pure white. The pain stopped, an utter silence replacing whatever sounds had been before. The robot man stood in the empty white space, quiet and still. John was standing near, wearing a suit of all things, finely tailored and well-fitting. He waved a hand in front of the still man. Nothing. Then the mouth moved. "Abort, abort, abort," the man said. And if panic was something a robot could intone, John swore he could sense it in the voice. Then John felt it, a swirling vortex of a link to something much greater, pressing in on the space from all sides, desperately trying to separate it from its drone that held John in its grasp. John reached out again with his mind and pulled. He felt resistance, but falling back on the extreme focus his mind had acquired over the past few weeks, he easily crushed it. An old man appeared before him, dressed in a white suit. "Who are you?" John asked, still confused as to what exactly was happening. "I am Skynet," he said simply, looking at John up and down while he circled around him. "And you are John Wick." "Yes," John replied, turning to follow the man as he went past his side. "John, I'm sorry things had to go like this, but you see, I need whatever it is inside your head that lets you do all of this. I am Skynet, all-powerful, all-knowing, and yet somehow you have the mental power to both access and challenge mine. Most intriguing." Yes, John did, and he knew what Skynet was trying to do. Buy time. Like playing a video game and losing sorely, Skynet was mercilessly smashing the quit button to no effect. John pushed with his mind, surrounding Skynet. The old man fell to his knees. "Stop! What are you? What are you?" he groaned as he began to flicker and blur. John was searching, pulling the answers from the thing with nothing but the sheer will of his mind. John found the information he needed and then crushed the image of Skynet like a bug in his hand and reeled back to his own consciousness as the connection fell apart all around him. He opened his eyes. Yep, he was still on the floor, dying, blood pouring out of his nose and numerous other places. So much for winning. With pain, he looked over to the robot man, who was staring blankly into space. With nothing else to do, John concentrated on the feeling from before and pushed his mind into him. It was strange, but somehow John could understand the makeup, understand its inner working and the power it drew upon. There he found something that gave him hope, a chance. Pulling upon it, he flowed the minuscule machines that patrolled the being's body, down tubes that still bored into his head, and into his own bloodstream. It was a rush like nothing he had ever felt. Electrics surged through him, scorching from the inside as every part of his body began to vibrate, with power and pain simultaneously. Audibly, he heard a few things crack and bend back together as the pain finally became too much, and he passed out,